So the Mountain West has notified San Diego State that they will be remaining a member for the foreseeable future. And I just keep thinking of this line from the movie Ted 2. The context is a little different there, but he says, #grr Mondays. It's Wednesday, but, same difference.
You are Locked On Pac-12, your daily podcast on the Pac-12 Conference. It's the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Locked On Pac-12. I'm your host, Spencer McLaughlin. Thank you so much for making this your first listen or your first view of the day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day and your number one source to stay up to date with our media rights free and San Diego State free and beloved Conference of Champions. Like, comment, subscribe, rate, review, please, and thank you wherever you listen to or watch this show. 3,000 on YouTube. Very grateful. You know what the next goal is. That's right. I'm holding up the number 4. That's for 4,000. That's our next goal. That's a ways in the future. But we continue on. We soldier on. Are there new media rights partners? We've got Pac-12 preseason teams to discuss. But the biggest news of the day yesterday was that San Diego State was informed by the Mountain West after the board of directors meeting on Monday that we talked about here on the show. After that meeting, they were notified by the Mountain West that after discussing their membership on Monday, which they said they were going to do, they have decided to allow San Diego State to continue to be a member in, quote, good standing, end quote, is what I have seen. They are going to now unleash, or free up rather, the $6.6 million media rights free that San Diego State is due as a member of the Mountain West Conference. They're going to keep a little bit of that to cover the legal fees that came about because of this whole fiasco of we're leaving, we're not leaving, but we're leaving, but we're also not leaving, and can we please stay? But we also don't want to stay, and we've said we don't want to stay, but we're going to stay. And so for now, it looks like San Diego State is staying put. This according to Pete Thamel. Others have reported it as well. So the question that is logically asked here, number one, is why doesn't the Pac-12 just add San Diego State and then factor them into the media deal? Maybe somehow, some way, that's still in their game plan. But the way that I'm reading this, the likelihood that the Pac-12 is a 10-team conference for 1 year, or dare I say several years, has increased. Now, is this all subject to change on a 24-hour basis? Yeah, that's kind of how this entire spiel has gone for the last, 7 months, roughly, since we've been actively talking about this deal here on the show. So the options for the Pac-12 and San Diego State going forward are something like this. Option number 1, come up with, whether that's the Pac-12 or San Diego State or both, I don't know where they'd get it from, but come up with $34 million to join the conference by 2024. Because the Mountain West deadline, per the bylaws, of a $17 million exit fee was June 30th. San Diego State, as we discussed through some clever legal and political jargon, was given a deadline, basically, extension to July 17th. The Pac-12 media deal is not done. We don't expect it to come this week. When should we expect it to arrive? Like I said, play pin the tail on the donkey on any day between now and the start of the season, and there is an equal likelihood that you are going to be as correct as I am, which is why I'm not on here saying, I think it's going to be this day, I think it's going to be that day. That's not a productive use of time. So that deadline has come and passed, and now it seems like it has kind of been solidified, set in stone. So that's option number 1. Option number 2 is join for the 2025-26 season and perhaps add only SMU for 1 year and then add San Diego State, or add nobody for a year, have 10 teams for a season, and then go to 12 teams for the following year? Now, that would be an inverse move of what the Big 12 is doing, but in theory not unprecedented, where you operate in one season in a way that isn't going to reflect what the conference will look like from a membership standpoint going forward. And then the following year, everything kind of settles down. You make some changes, make some adjustments. That's what the Big 12 is doing. They're going to have Texas and Oklahoma. Texas and Oklahoma are in the Big 12 right now, today. They're going to be this season. So are Cincinnati, Houston, UCF, BYU. It's a 16-team conference. So it's not like you couldn't do that necessarily. It would depend on what the media partners are looking for on that front. But maybe they just need to end up waiting a year. Another option for the Pac-12 here is you could add 2 schools that don't include San Diego State. You could have SMU, and you could pair them with Tulane, Memphis, Colorado State, UNLV, Boise, Fresno. Boise and Fresno aren't going to happen, but that is an option. I'm not saying which one is the most likely here because I don't have a great sense of what exactly happens next. Could they finagle their way in by 2024? Maybe. The Mountain West would have to make some concessions there. I don't know why the Mountain West would do that, though. If you're the Mountain West, you have given San Diego State and the Pac-12 enough time to get this together and their media partners, and blame whoever you want. It has not gotten done, and it's not the Mountain West's job to sit around and wait for the most optimal moment, for the opportune moment, since I love quoting Pirates of the Caribbean and all sorts of movies on this show. It's not their job to wait for the opportune moment for San Diego State or for the Pac-12. It's their job to operate in their own best interests. Now, today, as you're listening to or watching the show, perhaps the Mountain West is having their media day, and Gloria Nevarez, the commissioner, is going to be speaking. I'm going to take a major guess. I mean, I might be putting my reputation on the line with this prediction. I think she's going to get asked about this situation today. So I'll be curious to see what she has to say on that front. But something that got pointed out, pointed out, revealed, hinted at, phrase it however you want. Heather Dinich had a piece over at ESPN talking about the media deal and that she's hearing, this, that, and the other thing, which we'll get to. But one thing that was kind of mentioned in the article and just kind of left out there was the possibility of staying 10 teams, like long term. I don't want to do that personally. I don't know that it's in the Pac's best interests to not expand at all, but there is an argument that can be made given the landscape of college sports and athletics and realignment and the Pac-12 and how it all correlates to future realignment or expansion moves or anything of the sorts. There is an argument there. The argument to go check out LinkedIn Jobs is just as ironclad as the one I'm going to make. Because these days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. The Pac-12's got to fully evaluate expansion candidates, and you do too if you're a small business owner. You want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps find the right people for your team faster and for free. Go in there, post your job, which is super easy and free. Add your job in the purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you're hiring. Small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. Simple tools like screening questions make it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Some have said that second segment sips are as essential to a show's viability as a media deal is to a conference's viability. I don't know who those people are specifically. I just know that many have said that, including me, myself, and I. Okay, so The argument to stay at 10 teams, it exists. I'm not a fan of it personally. I think you limit the upside a little bit. But if you're the Pac-12 right now, what is your number one priority to survive as a conference? You need Oregon and Washington, and you need the Bay Area schools to stay on board, and Utah, frankly. But those top four, for historical, media market, and brand reasons, you need them in a big, big way. So, and yes, Utah's football program is light years above Cal and Stanford at this point in time. But Bay Area media market has some value. Once upon a time, remember, Maryland and Rutgers were added to the Big Ten. It wasn't because they had great sports programs. They haven't done anything great since joining the Big Ten. It's because they're on the East Coast and there are a lot of people with televisions over there. Same thing in the Bay Area. So, those are the four schools that you're looking at and you are trying to allure to your conference. And the best pitch that you can possibly make to Oregon and Washington, if, and this is an if, I have stated this repeatedly and will continue to say so until something changes, a Big Ten offer is not imminent, but if one were to come along one day in the future to Oregon and Washington, the best possible card the Pac-12 can play to allure those programs to stay in the Pac rather than going to the Big Ten is that your path to the playoff is easier here than it is over there. And that's true. That is unquestionably true. Your path to a conference championship is easier here. Your path to the playoff is more secure over here. Would you rather try and be Clemson or would you rather try and be Penn State? A good to really good team or program in a great deep conference with some elite blue bloods that are fantastic year in and year out? Would you rather try and compete with them and have one or two losses? Or would you rather be a big fish in a relatively small pond? And I think the answer, from a football standpoint, is big fish in a small pond. Because guess what? Penn State hasn't made the playoff, and Clemson's won 2 national championships. It's going pretty well. And they've played in 2 other ones. So that's the pitch. And if you stay at 10 teams, in the long run, there is a pretty solid argument from the standpoint of it's making the path to the playoff the easiest for the Pac. Because you have fewer teams that could develop into quality teams that could then continue the trend of the Pac-12 cannibalizing itself or having teams play spoiler. If you don't have as many teams, just basic odds and mathematics here, I'm not even going in depth on, individual teams and programs. If you have fewer teams in your conference, there are not as many opportunities for you to stumble. You are going to be more familiar with every team in your conference because you'll play them every year. Heck, the Pac-10, here's a thought that just popped into my head because that's kind of how this show works. Sometimes I prep, I do stuff. Also, sometimes things pop into my head as I'm going along and recording the show. What if the Pac-12 stayed at 10 teams and then, wait for it, went to an 8-game conference schedule? What if that's a carrot that you can dangle in front of those schools? Does it make the conference more alluring? I don't know. I haven't spoken to people at the University of Oregon and Washington who make those sorts of decisions. Now, I don't know who votes on realignment. I'm just kidding. Presidents vote on realignment. I am unclear as to how they prioritize these situations at those specific schools, just from the standpoint of I haven't spoken to them about it. I have theories about what they might think or what they should want, in my view, from a football standpoint, but I don't actually know these sorts of things. But that's the best pitch the Pac-12 could probably make. So the San Diego State news is fascinating. Maybe they're able to find the money. Maybe they're willing to go into the red for a little bit to one day get back into the black. I don't know. I don't know what happens there. But those are the next possible outcomes surrounding the school that has long been considered and still is the top expansion target for the Pac-12. Come up with $34 million to join next year. Wait to join in 2025 and 2026. Add 2 teams that don't include San Diego State at least in the short term. Maybe you add 2 for next year and 2 for the following year, and you end up at 14. I don't know. It's been reported that the Pac-12 presidents and chancellors were cleared to vet up to 4 expansion schools. So maybe they're going to do 2 and then 2 more. Could be. I don't know. Or just stay at 10 teams. That's what could happen next. So drop your thoughts in the YouTube comments below. I don't know that I have to tell you to do that. You guys do that anyway pretty well, which I appreciate. I very much love that. Like, comment, subscribe, rate, review, wherever you listen to or watch this show. That's what I say every day, and I appreciate all of you who continue to do that and support the show. Now, the other thing that came out yesterday, because this stuff just never ends, just keeps being fascinating. You know what? This part is really intriguing. Stuart Mandel reported and tweeted, quote, "There will be no Pac-12 deal to announce at Friday's media day." Boy, George Kliavkoff is going to have a fun time. "It's at least in part because, quote, we've seen folks come to the table that were not at the table 6 months ago," end quote, a conference source told Stuart Mandel. How interesting. Heather Dinich reported, and her piece is on ESPN, quote, "It is likely, the Pac-12 media deal, to include a mix of streaming and linear options and is expected to be on par with the ACC and the Big 12, the source said. Same source said, quote, this is talking to Heather Dinich, "Our 10 schools have been ridiculously patient," adding that the league's patience to make a deal has led to more bidders coming to the table. Quote, "That patience is about to pay off," end quote. Okay. Number of things to unpack there. First of all, the Mandel part, that there are partners at the table that were not there 6 months ago. Could it be a smokescreen coming from the Pac-12? Could they finally be playing the PR game? Yes, that is a possibility. Is it also possible that there is a media entity at the table that wasn't there 6 months ago? Yes. That is also possible, because seeing as how the Pac-12 is without a deal currently, situations can change, the economy can change, priorities can change over the course of many, many months, and a company many months ago might have decided, we're not interested in bidding on the Pac-12. And then things come around later and they say, well, actually, if we could get these games and get them at this price, maybe we'd be interested. You know, when I was a little kid, my dad's told this story many times. When I was a little kid, all little kids are picky eaters, right? Because your taste buds are just kind of, simpler and whatnot. My taste buds are definitely not super simple now. I will eat anything in the world. There's only one thing in the world, actually, fun fact about me, not that you care, but you're going to hear it anyway, that I don't eat, that I would, pick off, that I would not eat if offered to me, and I would pick off of food. There's only one thing, and I want to see how many of you can guess it. And I will tell you what it is. But there's only one thing. Anyway, so when I was a little kid, my dad, had these meals that my mom prepared. And I, as a kid, I just wanted something simple, right? Like chicken nuggets. There were these frozen chicken nuggets. They were amazing. Gosh, they were so good. That's all I wanted. And so in the early years of my mom making these dinners, I just said, no, I just want the chicken nuggets. That's all I want right now. And then, as my dad was, parading through the kitchen with these exquisite meals, my mom is an outstanding cook. I mean, cream of the crop. She is top tier. So she would make these things for my dad that would be really, really good. And at first, I was always adamant, no, I just want chicken nuggets. And then I'd keep looking. I just keep looking over it. What does my dad have? Dad, what's on your plate there, Dad? What is that? And I just peek over. I just look, be like, oh, what? I still like my chicken nuggets, but I might be interested. And then eventually, it became curiosity that killed the cat, and I said, okay, I want to try that. I see no reason that can't happen for a media partner. No, we don't want the Pac-12. You sure? Yeah, no, we're sure. We don't want the Pac-12 at this price. Yeah, no, we don't. Okay. Keep an eye on it. You keep a watchful eye, and you're just kind of sitting there. Like, oh, how much? That much? Well, all right. I'm not saying I'm interested. I'm not saying I want to eat that big fancy dinner yet. I'm just going to think about it. All right. I'm just going to think about it. I'm just going to weigh my options. I'm just going to talk to my boss. Well, what if that number suddenly sounds a little bit better to us? But hey, are you guys still working on that sort of deal? Yeah. Are you interested? By all means, it's The Price is Right. Come on down. So I find that to be a plausible explanation as well. Now, there has been no indication as to who these entities could be. Maybe it's Fox. Maybe it's CBS. Maybe it's ESPN. Maybe it's Ion, my dream. Maybe it's the CW. I love Criminal Minds. Pac-12 football, Criminal Minds. It's just, oh my gosh. Be the greatest way to end a Saturday night. Okay, anyway. Like, kind of creepy, too. Because some Criminal Minds episodes they can be kind of creepy. But I find that to be intriguing. And I do wonder, on the other hand, if the Pac-12 isn't trying to get that story out there, whether it has teeth to it or not, so that going into the media day, they're saying they can come to the podium, George Kliavkoff can, and say, hey, we don't have a media deal, but we have people who are re-entering the conversation and we're working on filing that. We're not going to comment at this time as to who those partners are. They have asked that we not do that, and we're not ready to do that, but we're ready. We will be prepared in the coming weeks or before the season starts or whatever. I pray that the Pac-12 has given up on the whole deadlines thing, because it hasn't worked out. It's the cartoon rake over and over. It is just bong, bong, over and over and over again. It's going to be done in a few weeks. It's in the final stages. It's almost done. End of March, beginning of June, end of June. Just say you'll see it when you see it. So I don't think that he should come out and make the declaration, it's going to be done by this date. Nah, don't do that. So that's kind of where I stand with that stuff. Is it could be a play to kind of save face at media days, or it could be they've actually re-entered the talks, whoever they might be. Now, the part that Dinich reported about it's expected to be on par with the ACC and the Big 12. Number one, interesting, the ACC is mentioned first. Just saying. I could be reading too much into that. Maybe I am. But it didn't say on par with the Big 12 and the ACC, on par with the ACC and the Big 12. If it were to land in between those two deals, that would be a win for the Pac-12. But this is the second time in about a week that I have heard a quote come from Pac-12 country through a legitimate reporter. The patience is about to pay off. It will all be worth it in the end. Pac-12 is just putting all their eggs into the basket here in this media deal, because they've just sprinkled these little quotes and dropped these little hints and made these comments here and there about, beating the Big 12 is a layup. We're going to get past that number. It's going to be in the range. It's going to be good. It'll be worth the wait. Well, if you're going to say all that stuff, you got to deliver. Because if you don't, you're going to take another hit as a brand from a conference standpoint, and that's just not what the Pac-12 needs right now. So anyway, as always, drop your thoughts below or hit me up on Twitter if you have any questions at Smalls_55 or at LO_Pac-12. Mailbag is chock full, by the way. A lot of questions in there that I've not gotten to, and I promise I will get to them at some point. The news news of the day is the news of the day. But love the mailbag questions. Keep them coming. So the preseason media polls have been released as we move to our daily football segment here for the Pac-12. These are media polls, and the first team goes a little something like this. Caleb Williams at quarterback. Can't believe it. Shocker. I didn't get a vote. I didn't get to vote in this, by the way. It's hurtful. Hurtful. Maybe one day I will come to you as the host of this show and I'll say, here are the preseason media polls. Here's where they shook out. Here's who I voted for. That would be neat. Anyway, first team offense, Caleb Williams, Damian Martinez, Bucky Irving, Rome Odunze, Dorian Singer, Brant Keithy. Then you have Satoa Laumea, offensive lineman from Utah, Joshua Gray, offensive lineman from Oregon State, Troy Fautanu, offensive lineman from Washington, Talise Fuaga, from Oregon State, and Keaton Bills from Utah. 4 of the 5 players. Isn't it curious that 4 of the 5 players on the first team offensive line are from teams that are built in the same mold, quiet, under the radar, humble, pro style, one back sets, a lot of 12 personnel. Anyway, found that interesting. Second team offense, Michael Penix Jr., Jaden Ott, California Golden Bear, how interesting. Carson Steele at UCLA, newcomer there for the Bruins, preseason all second team. Pretty lofty expectations there for the Ball State transfer. Jalen McMillan from Washington, Jacob Cowing, Arizona, Benjamin Jurasic, and then another Oregon State offensive lineman in Jake Levengood. For those of you at home, that's 3 of the 10 preseason all-conference Pac-12 offensive linemen on one team, Oregon State. And then there are 3 second-teamers belonging to another team, that's USC rather. Justin Dedich, Jonah Monheim, and Jarrett Kingston, and then Jordan Morgan on there from Arizona as well. I don't know if I skipped over Benjamin Jurasic or not, tight end from Stanford. Second team, we'll do second team defense first and then first team defense. Brennan Jackson and Ron Stone Jr. from Washington State. Good defensive culture up there in Pullman from Jake Dicker and company. Van Fillinger from Utah. Zion Tupuola-Fatui from Washington. Lander Barton, Mason Cobb, and Eric Gentry are your linebackers from Utah, USC, and USC respectively. There's more USC guys on defense here than you might think of. Kind of helps them be the conference favorite right now. Defensive backs, Chow Smith-Wade from Washington State. Again, the Cougars' defensive culture is outstanding. Jabbar Muhammad at Washington. Craig Woodson from Cal. with another? Oh, yeah, that's interesting. Evan Williams from Oregon, a newcomer there. Your returners are Silas Bolden and Anthony Gold. Bolden from Oregon State, second team. Anthony Gold, Oregon State, first team. No surprise there. All-purpose and special teams guys. You also have Jacob Cowing on the second team. And then on the first team, Colorado's Travis Hunter and USC's Raleek Brown. First team defense. I always think of, I think it was Tony Allen made a play years and years ago in the NBA playoffs on defense. And he knocked the ball away and it led to a dunk at the other end. And he's just sitting on the ground and you can just see him mouthing, "First team all defense," because he was first team all defense. So, first team defense in the Pac-12. Braylon Trice, Washington. Laiatu Latu, UCLA. Brandon Dorlus, Oregon. Junior Tafuna, Utah. No complaints there. Your linebackers, Jackson Sermon. Look, another California Golden Bear. I'm just throwing it out there. Anyway, Kareem Reed, Utah. Darius Muasau from UCLA. Cole Bishop from Utah, Kalen Bullock, USC, Keaton Oladapo, Oregon State, and Travis Hunter from Colorado. Those are your preseason first team and second teamers. Now, a couple takeaways here. Would it surprise you to know that there are as many Oregon players on these first and second teams as California Golden Bears? I know, I am the world's most obnoxious California Golden Bear fan, but that stood out a little bit to me because Cal's win total is 5.5 and Oregon's win total is 9.5. They have similarly difficult schedules. And Cal, no wonder their win total just got bumped from 4.5 to 5.5, according to our friends over at FanDuel. But the Cal players that are on there, by the way, you've got Jay Knott, the running back, the only offensive representative, but Jeremiah Hunter, very good receiver on the outside. He was preseason honorable mention, by the way. And then Cal's got Jackson Sermon on the first team defense, Craig Woodson on the second team defense. I would watch out for Brett Johnson as well, preseason all-conference honorable mention for Cal. If he pops, that's a first or second team caliber guy by the time the year comes to a close. But, I looked at this list, and these lists are tough to put together, and they're based on votes from a lot of different people, from a lot of different backgrounds. I'm going to look past the offensive line here because I won't pretend to have a bunch of inside info on, having studied and broken down the offensive linemen and whatnot. But as for everybody else, this stuff is mostly right. Like, you don't always get this stuff super right. And look, this may be my bias as an Oregon fan here. I would have had Troy Franklin on the second team. I think Odunze and Singer on the first team is completely I might have even gone Odunze and Cowing on the first, but Singer led the league in receiving yards a year ago, so kind of hard to not have him there, especially in USC's offense. But I don't know how high on the depth chart he is at USC in terms of the wide receiver room. So I think he might be a touch high. I think having Troy Franklin as honorable mention is a little bit low, but is statistically, I think, driven because Oregon does not have as pass-happy of an offense. So is he going to be a 1,000-yard receiver? Probably not. He could be. He's talented enough. But Oregon doesn't throw the ball as much as Washington and USC do in there. But it's not as if McMillan and Odunze are anything except, a really, really dynamic pair, among the best in the country. Cowing and McMillan, by the way, not a bad tandem themselves. The thing that I noticed on here that stood out as, kind of like a big picture when I just read through the list and looked through was the number of newcomers that were on there. Carson Steele at UCLA. That's a newcomer. Guy has not played a snap for the Bruins. He's replacing Zach Charbonnet. Big shoes to fill there in Brentwood. I think it's Brentwood. Yeah. Los Angeles, Brentwood, the same sort of thing. Evan Williams at Oregon, defensive back. They need help in the secondary after how they performed defending the pass a season ago. Again, newcomer. Travis Hunter, big-time recruit. So putting him on the first team, some people may say, that's a bit too much. Perhaps. Perhaps it is. But the guy is mega talented. Like, having him as a first-team all-purpose and special teams guy and as a first-team defensive back, sure. You could sell me on it being a bit too much. But the guy is super talented. And he'd be starting on, I think, just about every team in the Pac-12. I don't know which Pac-12 team he would not be starting on exactly. And the last thing that stood out here is a tip of the cap of sorts to Lincoln Riley and Alex Grinch because of the number of preseason players that they have on the defensive side of the ball. They have, count them up, 1, 2, 3, 4, they have 3 first or second team preseason all nominees on the defensive side of the ball. You factor that in to having brought in a pair of talented defensive linemen, Anthony Lucas and Bear Alexander. You don't need USC's defense to be great. You just need it to be competent. That's all you're looking for. You just need it to be competent. You just need it to be solid, be able to get some stops, and they're going to win a lot of football games. I suspect USC will do that either way. Football is close. Media day is Friday. Talk to you tomorrow.
You are Locked On Pac-12.
Botched it. Click the wrong button. Happens to the best of us. Appreciate everyone listening. I will see you next time. And until then, hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.